What is going on, YouTube? I am Germ here. Today, I wanted to talk a little bit about Treatz. Obviously, North American and European fans both know this guy pretty well. He is a native European player. He spent a lot of time in North America with TSM Academy for a couple of years. Honestly, last season even got a little bit of time with the main team for TSM, and then went to Worlds with TSM where he didn't get to play. And then they had, kind of the weird, crazy off-season where they decided to let Treatz go, and they decided to go throw all this money at SwordArt. And I think this brings up a really interesting conversation. I wanted to talk about Treatz in this video today, not only because he has been playing very impressively well for SK Gaming. He has them in a very good position in the LEC right now. He has been, in my opinion, one of the best supports in the LEC in Europe, which is awesome for him. But then on the other side, did TSM make a mistake? Should they have hung on to this guy? Could they have hung on to this guy? Would it have been a better decision in the end? I think there's just a lot of stuff to talk about, and I think there's a lot of really interesting discussions to be had here. So I want to give my thoughts and opinions on this whole issue, and then hopefully get your guys' thoughts and opinions on everything going on as well. But before we get into that, I just want to mention real quick, if you have not already, please take a second and smash that like button. I would appreciate it so much. It really does help me out. The YouTube algorithm helps just grow my channel, my content more and more. That would be absolutely awesome. It's an easy way to help support my channel if you are interested in doing that. Also, subscribe to stay up to date on all my latest content so you don't miss out on any of the videos we got going on in the future, because, we're getting closer and closer to the end of the regular season in all these leagues. We're going to have big stories. We're going to have big games, big moments coming out very soon, so you don't want to miss out on any of that. With that being said, let's get right into this. Again, we're talking about Treatz and SK Gaming. So this guy has been absolutely popping off for SK recently. SK is 7-2 in their last 9 games, which is crazy to see, because honestly, this is a pretty inexperienced team that people didn't have very high hopes for. Obviously, with Blue and Tinks coming in, teams didn't really know what to expect. And even Treatz himself, yes, he'd gotten some time in the LCS, and he had looked pretty good with TSM for some games, but he was coming off of playoffs where he didn't look so good. He was benched again for Biofrost, who was not looking even so great at the time. So people did have hype behind Treatz. People were excited for him, and I personally would have loved for TSM to hang on to him. I always thought he was a really great player. I thought he was a great mind, but he was inexperienced, so people didn't necessarily know what to expect. But again, this SK team has been looking pretty solid recently, with Treatz having some just pop-off performances. We see he had a 1-2-9 game on the Rel against Excel in his other game last weekend. This game was absolutely insane. There were so many highlights from this game. 2-3-22 on the Alistar against Mad Lions. This was like a very hard carry performance for Treatz on the Alistar. A lot of his team did well. Jezu, Gen-X, Tinks, they all had very good games, but Treatz was definitely a shining star in that one. And then Misfits, going up against Vander and Kabe, that's a tough bot lane. That is a very skilled bot lane. That is a tough matchup. And Treatz with the 0-8-17 on Jarvan, obviously a lot of deaths, not necessarily one of Treatz's best games, but still, the fact that he's able to pull out so many different champions in so many different situations is a real strength from him, and gives SK a definite advantage in draft. Also, Schalke, a team that had been looking pretty good in the first half of the LEC split, they ran into SK as well. This was one of Treat's really better games. 1-2-16 on Leona. And then we also have this game against Vitality, where Vitality's not that great right now. Obviously, but Treatz is the 1-1-12 on Rakan. I think that is SK's 5-game win streak that they're currently on right now. That has seen them move all the way into 3rd place in the LEC. Again, this is a team that people had low expectations for. This is a team where a lot of people, and myself included, had them mostly rated in like the bottom 4 teams of the league. It was tough to see how exactly this inexperienced team with a lot of question marks that we didn't know how it was going to work out was going to do super well in the LEC, especially an LEC that looked pretty strong this season. It has a lot of good teams on paper. Now, SK has been a little bit fortunate that they haven't had the hardest schedule so far in the second half of the season. I don't think they've played G2 or Rogue yet, and maybe they've even only played Fnatic one time. I'm not 100% sure on that. So as we go on in these last couple of weeks of the season, maybe things will get a little bit more difficult for SK. Maybe they'll start to run into some roadblocks and things. But so far, so good. Even if SK drops a couple places in the standings, they still have been largely outperforming a lot of people's expectations. And even if their team does start to fall off a little bit, I still stand to say that Treatz has been one of the best supports, because, yeah, I don't think he has the best roster around him. I don't think he has the most talent around him. I don't think he has the best team there able to enable him. So the fact that he's able to stand out and look like one of the best supports in the league still, I think is a really great sign for me. And if we are able able to, you know, get Treatz onto a little bit better roster, maybe improve some of the talent around him, or maybe get him to another team in the future. I think this guy has a very, very bright future ahead of him. I think he has a chance to be just a really, really insane support for the LEC. When we take a look at the player of the game standings, we will see that right now Treatz is tied for second with 4 player of the games, which is crazy. That's awesome, obviously, for him. And I'm honestly not surprised because, again, I thought this guy was absolutely insane in the LCS. When we got to see him, I was really, really impressed with him. And he had a bunch of great splits in the academy where he made his teams really, really good. He made his AD carries always look good. But for him to have 4 player of the games, and SK's 8 wins is pretty crazy. Obviously, he has, in half of their wins, he's been kind of the defining factor for that. Not that player of the game is like the end-all, be-all of awards or stats or anything, but it's at least a good sign. It is still really, really impressive. And another thing to even point out here is in some of SK's losses, Treatz is still looking like the best player on the team, still looking like one of the best players in the games, which I think is almost more impressive. That's even more difficult to do. We've all played solo queue or ranked or whatever when you know, your team just kind of holds you back a little bit, which can be, I mean, that's just how the nature of the game is. It is a team game, and if your team is getting outclassed, if your team isn't showing up, if your team isn't having the best game ever, it can make your score worse. It can make it more difficult for you to make plays. It can make it more difficult for you to stand out. But I have very, very much so been impressed with what Treatz has been able to do so far this year. And a large part of this video was just to give props to Treatz, because if people in the LCS who have been, you know, supporting him and following haven't necessarily known what's been going on, just know that Treatz is doing very, very well over in the LEC right now. SK at the least looks like they're going to be able to make the playoffs, and then who knows what could happen from there. But at worst, you know, he's still having a very, very good split, and hopefully getting his name out on the radar to some of these other bigger and better teams, or maybe drawing the interest of some free agents to maybe be coming to SK in the future, because that would be absolutely awesome. On the other side, we have TSM, who is currently sitting at 8-4 in the standings themselves. Obviously, SK is 8-5, so we're looking at 2 teams that are pretty much at the same record at this point in the season. Now, that is ignoring TSM's LCS lock-in tournament, where, you know, Treatz and SK, they didn't have the benefit of having a bunch of preseason games that didn't count for them to kind of build up synergy and practice and stuff. So this TSM team has been able to play more games together, but they also didn't look so great at the beginning of the season, just like SK didn't. SK started out the season very, very slow. They were dropping a bunch of games at the beginning. They've since turned it around and been on fire, just like TSM has as well. But if you completely ignore the lock-in tournament, which I'm not going to, TSM has been really, really up and down. They have looked very, very rough at times, and I think it's kind of strange because, again, TSM had Treatz. They had the option to give him the starting position this year, and I know there were a lot of TSM fans and really just North American fans in general that were looking for them to give that spot to Treatz. The people felt like he had deserved it or earned it, or maybe that it was just going to be a good decision because he's a very, very talented player. Obviously, TSM wanted to go make a big splash in the offseason, which is cool too. You want to see your favorite teams, you want to see the best teams be willing to go make a big move if they think it is going to improve the team or whatever. And SwordArt was out there. Obviously, they paid him like $3 million or something crazy. And you know, we still don't really know exactly what to make of that. We're only 12 games into the very, very first split of this contract. We still have the rest of the spring split, playoffs, maybe summer playoffs, worlds potentially, all that stuff. And then all of that again next year to see exactly how the TSM story is going to go for SwordArt. But I think it's going to be tough for him to ever live up to the price tag that TSM paid. And I just think it makes it a little bit more difficult to kind of swallow that whole contract when you see just how well Treatz is doing over in Europe, and when you know that Treatz would have been a fraction of the cost, and that Treatz already has existing synergy with Lost and speaks very, very highly of him, and was kind of expecting Lost to do well. Now, obviously, there is more going on to this story. There was a time during the offseason where TSM was thinking Doublelift was going to be their AD carry. We know that Doublelift and Treatz, they seem to get along. They've done some streaming together and stuff, but for whatever reason, their playstyles just didn't mesh. Their playstyles didn't mash, and Doublelift had a little bit more say in the organization. So when Doublelift didn't feel comfortable going with Treatz or whatever, didn't see, you know, a future of them as a bot lane together, that could be part of the reason why TSM moved on. But even then, I would still say that's a little foolish and short-sighted, because Doublelift was at most looking like he was going to play one more year. You know, he was teetering on the edge of retirement already, and in this past season in 2020, Doublelift did not look very good. So I'm not completely shocked that Doublelift and Treatz did not make a great bot lane together. Obviously, they didn't have a ton of existing synergy. They were trying to just, you know, learn how to play together on the fly during the playoffs of the LCS against Huhi and FBI, which were one of the best bot lanes in the LCS. While Doublelift wasn't playing good, while Treatz was pretty much a rookie, there was just a lot of stuff that was going to make it really, really difficult. But then again, trying to decide for the future, you know, do we take this guy who has played with us in Academy forever, we're super familiar with. He's a vocal player, which is something we really, really need. You know, he likes to shot call. He likes to talk in the game. He has good communication. He has an insane champion pool. And, you know, he's a little inexperienced. He didn't have the best playoffs ever, but he's been with us for a while. He's familiar with us. He really seems to love TSM. Even to this day, he's always tweeting about them and stuff and showing support and everything. Or do we go and throw a bunch of money at another import or whatever? And that's the tough thing here, is that Treatz was still going to be an import, even though he's familiar with the United States, even though he's familiar with NA, even though he's been with TSM for a while, he was still going to be an import. So I get what TSM was thinking. They were like, you know, if we're going to use an import slot, we're going to go make a splash. We're going to go make a bang. And, you know, it has worked out all right. SwordArt has been good. He has not always been super good. Again, lock-in tournament, who really knows? It seems like he's still becoming kind of comfortable with the whole team, with Lost, obviously, with North America. There's a lot of changes going on in his life and stuff, and it's definitely going to take some time. I do like what we've been seeing more and more from SwordArt. I think he is looking better and better, and I am really, really excited for the future of TSM. But when you have guys like the LCS owners and you have Reggie talking about how they're doing everything they can to develop and foster talent, and also they're talking about, man, our businesses are so expensive. We're running our businesses at a loss. This is unsustainable. We need help. We need Riot to help us lower costs and everything. Yet you have teams like TSM who have cheap players in their own backyard, like Treatz, and they pass him up and they go and spend millions of dollars on a solution that at best might be like slightly better, but at worst maybe Treatz would have been better for TSM. Maybe he would have been the same but costed millions of dollars less. Like, you know, Treatz would have been a couple $100,000 to be the starting support for TSM, I would imagine. Obviously he went over to Europe, where we know the salaries are not that high, the salaries are not that crazy. So yeah, I mean, in the end, it's just a little bit frustrating as a TSM fan, as an LCS fan, knowing that the owners are talking about, oh, our costs are way too high. It's way too expensive to run these teams. It's way too expensive to be competitive internationally, blah, 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 blah. And then we have cheap players in our own backyard that seem loyal to our teams, that seem to like North America, that just won an opportunity, that won a chance, and TSM let him play a couple of games, but then didn't give him any playing time at Worlds, didn't even give him an opportunity to be the full-time starter, let him walk and go to a European team where he's now killing it over there, and went and spent a bunch of money on an import who a lot of people think might be a little bit past his prime, might have been a little bit overrated. And again, yes, he has been good. I'm not trying to flame SwordArt by any means, but I think it would be tough for any player to justify a $3 million price tag, especially in this world of overinflated salaries where players are probably making too much money, where the businesses are not really even making enough money to justify the player salaries in a lot of cases. But SwordArt's been good, but he hasn't been like MVP good. He hasn't been like best player in the LCS good. And when you are the highest paid player in the LCS, you know, you would hope you're at least up there. And I just think Treatz would have been a much better value play. Now, obviously, it's very easy to say now. Looking back on it, yes, Treatz did come with a lot of risk. He didn't look that great in the playoffs. He was very, very inexperienced, and TSM was kind of trying to win now. But you know, now having an opportunity to look at how things have played out so far, again, still a ton of League of Legends to be played, not only this year, but into the future as well. Can Treatz keep these things up? How good is he going to be in the future? Can SwordArt continue to get better? Is he going to continue to get better in the future? Is he going to be, you know, one of the best players in the LCS at some point in his tenure with TSM? All of that remain to be seen. We aren't exactly sure how that's going to go, but I at least do think there should be a conversation going on about, did TSM do Treatz dirty? Should they have hung on to him? And in the end, was this just a really foolish decision by TSM and Reggie to just go spend all this money on a player that in the end, again, might only be marginally better than our boy Treatz? I am a little bit biased, obviously. I do like Treatz. I think he has a cool personality. I love his champ pool. I love his play. I love his communication and everything. But I like SwordArt too. But again, $400,000, $300,000 or $3 million, I think that has to be factored in the equation as well. But that is pretty much it for this video today, guys. Definitely drop a like if you enjoyed it. I would appreciate it so much. Really helps me out the YouTube algorithm. Leave a comment down below. What do you guys think about this whole situation? Did TSM making a mistake going with SwordArt? Would you have went with Treatz, or do you think SwordArt will work out in the end and Treatz maybe wouldn't have been so good on TSM? I would love your guys' thoughts and opinions on anything we talked about in today's video. Subscribe to stay up to date on all my latest content. Hopefully catch you guys in the next one. But until then, peace!